Good morning, my twinnies. It's your favorite Twinful twin, Tasha, and I wanted to take just a few minutes to talk to you about our brains and how it impacts our grief cycle. This is knowledge that I did not come to until I started researching it and studying it. And I know that as new lost twins, I should say, if you don't have much education about your brain, then the grief cycle can at times be very, very overwhelming. So I wanted to share my recent knowledge and how it's helped me progress through my grief cycles. We do actually there's 3 layers to our brain. So yes, we do have one brain, but there's 3 layers to it. There's the lower brain, middle brain, and upper brain. Our lower brain is what takes care of our breathing, our heart, our digestion, everything that happens without us having to quote unquote think about it. So a lot of times when we are experiencing a brand new loss, we often find ourselves functioning out of our lower brain, which is completely normal and common. We say we can barely get out of bed in the morning. We're not even sure how we can get through the day. Sometimes we're not even recalling what it was that happened throughout the day. And a lot of times it's because we're in that survival mode. Our middle brain is what regulates our gland system and also our emotions. So our middle brain is where anger and love and hurt and frustration and joy, all of those things that we feel is managed in our middle brain. And that's where our emotions run super, super strong. When we're functioning out of our middle brain, we are very emotional. We tend to have roller coasters in our experiences of things that, when we're regulated by our feelings, we find that we are significantly impacted at what things people are saying to us, how they're interacting with us. A lot of times our past experiences are filtered through our middle brain. And so we'll go through an experience in our future and it reminds us of something that we've been through, or someone treated us a certain way, and it brings us back to that middle brain emotion and experience. And so that's why sometimes, especially in our early loss, if we're really kind of functioning out of that lower brain and our emotions, our just survival mode, and then someone says something and our emotions are like really, really high and really, really raw, it's because that's the space that we're functioning out of. Our upper brain is where our cognitive reasoning comes in. That part of our brain actually isn't fully developed until we're 25 years old. A lot of people don't know that. My sister calls it Swiss cheese. There's gaps in our brain and in our development. If anybody has raised a child, you've experienced where they come out and they really can't do a whole lot. It's all about just eating, pooping, peeing, and sleeping. That's all lower brain. And then all of a sudden they start to discover their emotions, and they can start letting you know when they're happy, when they're angry. And then as they get older, they start to develop that cognitive reasoning. It's through our pubescence and up into our mid-20s that the rest of that aspect of our brain is developed. And that's where we're able to make deductive reasoning. That's where we're able to look at circumstances and apply logic and make different choices in how we're going to respond to circumstances based on that aspect of our brain. Okay, great. So there's your lesson on the 3 layers of the brain. But what does that mean to us as twins and dealing with our grief? Let's get to the meat of that for a minute. When we go through a trauma, like the passing of a twin, we often find ourselves functioning out of, again, our lower brain. Why? Because our brain kind of shuts down. Why? Because we don't have the coping skills to process and deal with and manage the level of emotion that we're feeling from that loss. Bottom line. The other thing is that because we're upset, we often take more shallow breaths. We don't breathe deep. And when we don't breathe deep, our body conserves where it distributes the oxygen, which means our upper brain is not getting oxygenated. which means our cognitive reasoning is not triggered, which means the logic that we apply to how are we going to process that is not there. And then we wonder, why can we not process what we're going through? Well, it's because we're down in our lower brain. That's why. And it's our body's natural way of protecting ourselves. So when there are twins that are further down the path and they say, give it time, and we get so angry, like, what the are you saying to me? I'm never going to feel better. I mean, great, I appreciate your perspective, but keep it to yourself. I'm never going to feel better. Well, in that moment, you're right. You're absolutely right, because in that moment, you're still functioning from your lower and potentially a bit of your middle brain. As you are able to get through the trauma aspect of it and start developing coping skills, it's the same thing as a child learning how to walk and learning how to read and learning how to talk, learning how to read, learning how to do all these things. As you start growing into your pubescence of your twin experience, your twin loss experience, yes, your cognitive reasoning does expand. You do develop a knowledge that you didn't have before. That's why late loss twins say, hang in there, give it time. That's why we say, hang in there, give it time. We understand, or I understand, that when you first lose your twin, or you have, there's people out there that aren't twins that are losing people, you go into that lower brain, and it's just all you can do to survive, and it's normal. And as you process the strong emotions, as you get past being able just to breathe, and now you're facing, how do I process this incredible anguish that I'm experiencing? How do I process that? Well, you don't know, because you've never had to process that before, right? Just like a child doesn't know how to walk. They've never had to do that before. Okay? You know how gentle and loving you are when a little one is learning how to walk? When we say be gentle with yourself, that's what we're talking about. You're learning how to process those emotions. And it is a learning process. And that's okay. That's okay. There does come a time when your cognitive reasoning kicks in. And when it does, that's when you're able to start seeing the signs, right? Because you're not just in survival mode, and you're not so overwhelmed by your emotions that you can't handle what's going on around you. Your cognitive reasoning kicks in, and you become able to see things that you couldn't see before. It's just part of the process, friends. It's just part of the process. So please be gentle with yourself. Know that I love you. And there were decades, literally decades, that I didn't know what I just shared with you. I didn't. And it wasn't until I applied myself to gaining some of this knowledge and studying the brain and studying grief and studying coping skills and how to process traumatic experiences that I gained this knowledge. So please don't beat yourself up if this is all new to you. It's totally okay. There was a season when it was all new to me too. But I'm very grateful for the people that invested in me and helped educate me about that process. And I'm hopeful that this brings you a little bit of comfort in helping you understand what it is that you're going through. Loving you, loving me, always in all ways. Make it a great day.